This is the Brilliantly Branded podcast, a safe place to have a voice and talk about branding and all the reasons that bring a brand to be brilliantly branded. I am your host, Maria Lucia Romero, a woman empowering other women, and I am welcoming you to this journey of learning and inspiration to build awareness around the world of business and the world of brands. This is the Brilliantly Branded podcast. In this episode, I invited two comedians coming from different backgrounds, but united by their passion for comedy with a purpose. They are part of Festrogen Festival, an initiative in the comedy world that provides a welcoming space for women and non-binary comedians to share their humor. They are Marta Correia and Jess Bauldry, that came and shared their experiences across the comedy scene as a women and the overview of gender dynamics both on and off stage. These storytellers are maintaining their authenticity, even dealing with external pressures to overcoming challenges with creativity. Our conversation was very authentic and showed us the reality of the comedy scene in Luxembourg. They are actively involved in teaching workshops, empowering others to find their comedy voice and learn how to build impactful stories, as well to level the play field for marginalized voices in stand-up comedy and promote equality. So feel comfortable and ready to another interesting episode of the Brilliantly Branded podcast. Welcome! Welcome one more time to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. That you know that this is a safe place to have a voice and talk about branding and a nice combination with women empowerment. That is something that I have been doing, bringing different women with different profiles and backgrounds. This month, March, have the celebration of the International Women's Day, and happened that I am part of the co-organizers of the event of Women Power Fest. That happened that Marta and Jess, my guests today, are going to be part of that. So we are going to talk about that in detail later on. But for me, it's very important to let you know that I have invited these two talented comedians. And I guess they will be make us laugh a little bit, I guess. I don't know. Let's see. So just to our listeners, be prepared for that, but as well to listen their story and their experiences as a comedian, that actually they are doing a lot of things to empowering women across this hilarious storytelling. So today I have the pleasure to have Marta Correia and Jess Bauldry, and they are going to introduce themselves and let us know a lot of details about their lives. So welcome, Marta. Welcome, Jess. And could you introduce yourself and share with us how did you start with your journey as a woman in comedy? Who's going to start?
I don't know. I can start because I know Jess. Jess is one of the founders of Festrogen. So she was actually the person that I looked up to when I started doing comedy. It is a very male-dominated, let's put it that way, environment. And Jess was already performing. I'm not sure, Jess. I can't remember. Had you been performing already for like 2-3 years? I think when I came to see you in 2021.
Yeah, I think I started 2017. So
yeah. Yeah, so I actually went to see Jess perform a few times, and then I decided to join her. And I think, I mean, I can't speak for Jess, but I think in general, women go into comedy because there's a lot that we keep inside ourselves for a very long time, and at one point, you kind of feel that comedy can be the sort of space where you can talk about things that you normally wouldn't talk. You choose the tone. We women, whether it's at work or in our private lives, we're expected to behave a certain way, talk a certain way. And comedy really gives you the freedom to explore boundaries, shall we say, and break a few barriers in the process.
Yeah, exactly. Is explore boundaries is something clear that sometimes when you said the things with humor, that changed the context a bit. And I think that part of the experiences that you have been experimented include that. So Jess, now your turn to introduce yourself, please.
Oh, Marta did such a good job already. But just very briefly, I think why I got into comedy was that I think I needed something lighter in my life because sometimes you can get very focused on work and maybe work's not rewarding or it's very frustrating for one reason or another. So I needed something to lift me up. But at the same time, my work was asking me to do some more public speaking. So I was like, okay, this could be a good way to get better at public speaking. And I think once you realize how you can make people laugh whilst talking about yourself or whilst coming to terms with something that maybe you weren't comfortable with about yourself. I think this is what you were saying earlier, Maria, kind of our flaws. Once you can do that, it's a very empowering thing. It's also very addictive. And so you sort of keep coming back, and that's why I kept coming back. And in the beginning, there were a few more women, but as women, we're sort of busy doing lots of things. And some left and went on to do other things. And most of them I'm still in touch with. But I think that's just one of the things about comedy that you can just try it, and you'll always have those skills for life. You don't have to do stand-up comedy just by learning the techniques.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's very challenging, but I am curious about what inspired you to pursue this career, because it's part of the process that when you are convinced and are inspired and said, I'm going to jump to do this specifically. So what was this moment that you and Marta had to jump to this career?
Marta, do you want to go for it?
Can we call it career? I mean, for me, it's if we're talking about careers, it's probably the worst paid one. I mean, we get paid in dopamine. That's what we do. So I'm not sure unless you're a big comedian, it's maybe a bit of a stretch to call it career. But it is certainly a journey for me. It was a more of a personal one. So I'd already been doing public speaking in a kind of work setting. I used to do Toastmasters, and somebody suggested that I should give it a try. And at the time, I was going through divorce, and somehow in my mind, I just thought, what a great idea to go on stage and talk about everything that's happening. It's this could be the best idea or the worst idea, but I won't know until I try it. And it was very liberating. You have to be mindful of your audiences. But I somehow, talking about what Jess said before, sometimes there are some thorny subjects that you're not quite sure how to approach. And actually in the process, you answer a lot of questions, because when you're going through that process, people do have questions, but they're not always able to ask you directly. So in a way, it's almost letting people know how you're doing, but at the same time doing it in a way that is light touch, and put some, because sometimes in the most tragic of moments in life, you can still find the funny, and that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah, when I love what you said, that you get paid in dopamine. That is absolutely brilliant. I love that, because it's true. I know that being a woman in the comedy world, it is something that is not very well remunerated. And this is part of the things that we are going to talk, because this is a voice that you can express what is really happening. And I think that people are curious about what is happening in the comedy world related with the gender, related with women. And actually, Jess, if you want to add something about these reasons why you decide, and I consider yes a career, as you, Marta, said. I don't know if I'm going to say that this is a career. Of course, it's a career. It's absolutely something that you are doing because you know how to do that. This is not easy to have a microphone in front of you. I can say that. So yes, do you want to add something else?
So I think for me, I really enjoy the narrative part of it. So I grew up in the UK, in the southeast of England, in a pub, and English pubs are really all about stories, people telling stories, and so and sometimes jokes, or the stories would be exaggerated and be quite funny, not always for the right reason. And my dad was also a great storyteller, a great practical joker, and my mum also has a great sense of humour. So I was always surrounded by comedy, and but the idea that I could use that in performative element, I guess, came really a lot later. I did theatre as a kid, loved that. Did theatre at university, and then I was writing, just writing short stories, and I was like, I really would love to make a connection with my readers by making them laugh. I found it much easier to write something sad than something happy or funny. And I wanted to unlock, like, what is it that makes people laugh? And that really started the journey. And now it's just so enjoyable to either to write comedy that's not related to me, or to really like get to the narrative of like what's going on in my life. And I think, I guess what keeps me going is that it does feel really empowering that I can look at myself, the things that my flaws, the things that I was embarrassed about in the past, and I can really just talk about them openly. And once you can own those flaws and laugh at them, no one else can hold that power over you. So yeah, that's what keeps me going, I think.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, it's so inspirational, your story as well. And I have been seeing that you build together something called Festrogen.
Yes.
Festrogen. And actually, the origin of the name and the concept behind Festrogen, I would like you to talk about that. Who wants to talk about that?
We did a powwow before, so I'm going to take this one on. So yeah, Festrogen began out of a conversation with my mentor, actually, who's a really cool American comedian called Erin Crouch. She lives in Germany on an army base in Kaiserslautern, and she's been coming to Luxembourg performing, and she was super, super supportive. And I was like, I wish there were more people like that. I wish we could have this community of people like us, because there were times where I was like, oh, that was such a bad show, or like, oh, why do all of these I'm generalizing, but why were so many comedians making dick jokes? It was just like I wanted to hear more stuff about women, and I wanted to feel supported by women, and I wanted to support other women too, but we were just it was just me for a little while, and then Marta joined us, thankfully. So anyway, Erin had this conversation, and we were like, well, why don't we try and do something? Why don't we try and train people? Because I don't know about you, but it's quite scary to do something without any training, especially when you're going to get immediate feedback from an audience like you do in a comedy show. That's like the hardest feedback. So we had this idea of, okay, let's do workshops. Who can teach? And so we pulled together, okay, there's a few comedians here and here and here. And we're like, okay, so Erin was going to teach a beginner's joke writing with Anshita, who's an Indian comedian in Berlin. And then we had someone else who could do voice. And then so there were 5 of us basically. And we were like, well, if the teachers are here, why don't we do a show? And so it just kind of grew out of that. So it was really just about the workshops to begin with. And then the name itself actually was also Erin's suggestion. Break it down, it's estrogen, females, because we were a female-centric kind of comedy festival, although that has evolved in the last 2 years.
Yeah, well, I have a genuine question, but how you between comedians are going to do something to agree everybody in something serious, because just when you have a comedian in front, it's probably same. And when you have a doctor in front of you, and this person said the specialty, and you are asking some questions related with that, that the person ends up saying, come and make a consultation. So that happens to you as well in the things that you are doing daily basis?
I'm not sure I understand. Do you mean that it's hard to take each other seriously, or to have a serious conversation?
No, if the people knows that you are a comedian and start to, make asking you for some jokes or these kind of things.
People think it's a party trick that we just pull out at any time, and it's so much more fun. I like to go into work meetings and see if I can slip in a pun somehow. And not everyone gets it, but I do have a couple of colleagues where we play like joke bingo. But yeah, people kind of expect us somehow to just at a drop of a hat. And I've had that more and more at work. And it was just like, oh, I saw you're a comedian. Tell me a joke. As if that's
exactly.
It is a little bit weird, but yeah.
I can imagine.
But we do. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, Jess, but we spend a lot of time around each other doing comedy. But when it comes to Festrogen, we just kind of, I think we switch, and we're really trying to approach it very much in the way that we would if we had a job together. I mean, it doesn't mean that sometimes we don't crack jokes, but I do feel that we have different personas, so to speak, there, because I mean, I came along into Festrogen a little bit later, but I could really see it for what it could be. I mean, I think if you look around, if you Google female comedy festivals, I didn't really find a lot in Europe. Luxembourg is perfectly placed. I mean, the different comedians are from the neighboring region, so I could really see the potential that it could have, and I just wanted to be. When Jess said, would you like to be a part of it? I didn't even think. I just said yes straight away.
Yeah, I can imagine it's something that comes together in the right time and create this amazing, it's Festrogen. It's not just actually you are talking about the workshops that you are doing with Festrogen. So can you explain us a little bit how that works? What are the benefits or what you are offering in these workshops, for example?
Sure. I mean, so we had different workshops at the beginning, and like Jess said, it was around. It could be anything from how to structure a story to learn how to write a joke. Any woman or anyone who would like to come and take part in the workshop. So the next festival will be the last weekend of Easter, right, 13th and 14th of April, if I'm not mistaken. So we have been trying to encourage anyone who wants to be part and not necessarily to do stand-up to come and join the workshops.
Okay, fantastic.
I've been trying to. I think Jess knows this, but I just keep banging on about the fact that we should marry this with the private sector. People think that humor is just about writing jokes, but this goes into the realm of work as well. And I think everyone knows how most people are afraid of speaking. I mean, I'm not even just talking about telling jokes, but speaking in public. So the idea would be to really encourage anyone who would want to step into the limelight to feel that they have a safe space to do it in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's really an interesting place to just not learn how to build a joke, but actually to how to speak in public. That is very important nowadays, how to be in front of the public and know how to manage what to say, how to elaborate your pitch in order to really communicate the right things at the right time. And coming back to the lack of diversity actually in the comedy world, how do you believe that humor can be something powerful for spreading this message of this change in the world?
I think we switched over a question and answers. Anyway, how can humor bring change in the world? So I did brainstorm this earlier. I think humor is what everybody needs at the end of the day, just to be grounded. It's a great leveler. We always say humor is a great leveler. But like I said earlier as well, I think it's also an opportunity to get to know yourself a lot better. If you try to look at what is funny about you, and it helps you learn and helps you develop self-acceptance. But I think also a festival like this is really important because it's sort of building bridges with other people and connections, not just between people doing the workshops or people leading the workshops, but also between the performers on stage and the audience. It's such an intimate thing. And in this time where we're just watching everything through a screen and we're not really connected and we're just firing off messages without really thinking about them, I think just that intimacy and that shared moment, like especially when a comedian is talking about something really personal to them, obviously in a way that's, they're not too vulnerable, but I think that's just a really special moment, and I think it's actually very restorative for our human connections, and important in terms of like being good people and making the right decisions in our lives and being happy and fulfilled.
Yeah, what I have been researching actually about Festrogen is that you are gender inclusive and you are not actually just supporting women, but gender in general. So including non-binary or queer. So can you share with us some of the experiences or processes that you are putting in place to include them?
I don't know if Jess remembers this, but so on the back of Festrogen, we've also set up a female comedy club. It's called Freely Curtains. But at the very beginning, we had the first few open mics when we first got together. I think at the time we were maybe 6 comedians. And right at the end of the night, this is open mic, and we said to the audience, would anyone like to give this a try? And this girl who was in the audience, she was pointing at her friend. Do you remember, Jess? And
was she the trans lady, trans person?
You mean no? It was the Brazilian one that was based in Berlin, and
Lily the Queen.
And the stage was there, and there was this amazing story that came out about growing up in Brazil and not feeling seen, and all of a sudden not being able to be on stage and tell that story. And I mean, it just gave me goosebumps, because that is exactly what we set out to do to begin with. Even in just the briefest of moment, to get a complete stranger to get on stage and share a story. And I don't think that would have happened in other settings. It basically made us realize that was the safe space that we wanted to create all along, and somebody decided to take that space for a few minutes.
That's such a good point.
I say wow, because it just really took my attention actually to see how do you establish this connection with the audience, filling that space as a safe place with other comedians where you can really say it, I don't know, what is coming from your heart and from your soul. So how do you establish that as a comedian? How do you establish this relationship with the audience? For me, it's very challenging. I don't know.
I was just going to add something to what Marta was saying, if that's okay. That and it is related to your question, Maria. That first of all, it comes from how you produce a show. And one of the funny things about about comedy is that because it's never really been recognized as an art form, it's always been something that's been done in a dingy back room or a basement. So it's never, it's not like theatre or live music. So it's never been professionalized. And so that meant that for a very long time, like the environment was not professional. It was, sometimes there would be no code of conduct. I think, you can be a producer just by setting something up quite easily on your own. It's very democratic, in fact, to set something up. And so it means there are people who are maybe not very professional running shows. I'm not referring to Luxembourg. I'm being general about everything, around the world. And so as a result, that's why we ended up having some places that were not very safe. But we've seen in the last decade now, people taking sort of ownership of these spaces and saying like, okay, we need a code of conduct. Just today I noticed in the Netherlands, they have a group called Safe, I can't remember, it's called Safe something, Safe Comedy or something like that. And basically they take care of people who have a problem at a show and make sure, the comedians themselves, to make sure that they've not been, if they feel like they've been on the receiving end of any kind of abuse, so like it could be psychological or physical, from the organizers or other comedians. So first of all, the space is becoming more professional, and that already attracts people who feel safer on stage. And once you feel safer on stage, of course, you're going to have a much stronger connection. You feel much safer to be yourself. And if they know that there are people in the room, the organizers, the other performers have, your interests and they're on your side. I mean, it's just such a wonderful feeling, people lifting each other up. And it's not just women. I mean, Freely Curtains, is a women's run club, but we want everyone to perform there, everyone who feels like that's the sort of space that they want to be in, and the audience too. I know some people. I'm sorry, I talk a lot. Give me a microphone and you just can't shut me up.
Fantastic. I can see that. I mean,
but it's not very funny.
The floor is yours right now.
Yeah. You can't take the mic away here. No, I'll wrap this up. But oh shoot, what was I going to say? Safe spaces. Ugh, my brain. Oh no, never mind. It's gone. Yeah, being safe on stage, and never mind. We'll come back to it later. But
yeah,
all
no,
that
what you said is something that for me is new, because of course, if you need to find this safe space and you are not find it when you are doing comedy, well, having a place where it's going to support you because you have a probably not nice experience. I don't know if you have had not nice experiences already doing comedy as a personal experiences that you wanted to share with us.
I must confess. I mean, we've all had times when, like for one reason or another, we're not happy with the performance. But at least I, as a woman, have experienced a situation where if I do a riskier joke, that afterwards men think that is some kind of invitation. So they will come and talk to you, or refer to your joke, and they seem to blur the lines between who you are as a person and the jokes that you tell. I mean, I personally do the kind of comedy that is very personal. So to me, that's my way of connecting with an audience, and it goes back to authenticity. And I think what Jess was saying about getting an audience that is diverse starts with you first, because, if you show up as yourself, you encourage others to be there and to take the space at the same time. But there are times when, depending on where you go, and I think at the very beginning, at least when I started, more often than not, it was just me or Jess or one or the other. So you end up being one in a lineup of 10, 12 comedians, being the only woman there. So, not much. Even in a binary world, it's a very big imbalance, and we're not even talking about the even more underrepresented parts of society. And you do feel that, there is that line that sometimes is crossed. That people have to make the distinction between you as a being and the jokes that you make on stage.
Yeah, it's like this thing that everybody wants to put people in boxes and just say, well, this person is doing this kind of job or profession and needs to perform in the way that you have been made at before. So you belong to this box, and as simple as that. So that is not positive. Yeah, you're right.
Thinking that one of the things, because I suffer from this syndrome called resting bitch face, and so
what is that?
It's called a syndrome called resting bitch face. It's basically when I'm very deadpan, and I've had men telling me that I should try to smile more. I mean, I think we've all heard that. Yeah. So those are the kind of situations sometimes that we face with.
But let's say that this is probably part of the preparations that you are doing when you are going to the show where you don't know the other comedians. I mean, keeping that something in your attitude that is already part of your personality. I mean, my question is more, when did you change that attitude, that face that you say right now, and start to be in contact with the audience? Because, one thing is the comedians, colleagues, but the other thing is the audience. How do you really express all your authenticity and get this connection? Because, I don't know.
Oh, it's such a good question. How do you be authentic? I think I'm still trying to work that out, because comedy itself is going to be a filter. You can never be fully yourself, assuming that you know who you are. And I'm still learning, I think. And comedy is helping me to learn that. But how can you be authentic? I think I read a really good post recently that basically said, imagine when you're on stage and you're speaking to, like, there's all these people in the audience, and sometimes you know them, sometimes you don't. Actually, it's better when you don't know them, to be honest. And just imagine they're all your best friend, or, you know, the friend who always laughs at your jokes. And that basically means you're going to be talking more like you than basically trying to imitate, you know, your favorite comedian on Netflix. Because
Yeah, exactly.
you can imitate your favorite comedian and probably be really funny for a while, but it's really hard to sustain that. It's much better if you if you be yourself on stage. I think also authenticity comes from your material, and that's where it's a lot of the women tend to do material about themselves. Not everyone does, but I think that does help with your authenticity, because then you're like, when you're doing that same joke again and again and again, you're like, still true. Like about Martha's, like Martha was, for example, saying, yeah, men always telling me to smile. If you keep doing that joke, it's like, yeah, but it's unfortunately still true. So I still feel that joke, and I enjoy telling it for that reason.
Yeah, that is a very good that you are sharing those details with that. And just to start to wrap up, I have another question, and this question is more related about the different kind of humors coming from different cultures. Have you been experimented that as a part of, well, you know, I know English humor because I am with an English guy, so I know that. But, you know, is in Latin America, we have a different kind of humor. So how do you deal with that?
Marta?
You know, it's funny, Radia, because I studied in the UK and I had a very big exposure to British culture. And that is my kind of, so even though I'm Portuguese and I'm doing comedy in supposedly a foreign language, it's dark. It's dark like British humor. It's people have asked me to do comedy in Portuguese. I don't think I could ever do it because, as you say, comedy in Portugal is so different, and I don't relate to it somehow. Maybe it's the darkness in the kind of British humor that I just love, and the irony, the play on words. You know, I speak different languages, but I think I could only do comedy in English.
Interesting. What about you, Jess?
So it's so interesting in Luxembourg to see that there's a lot of different linguistic comedy groups. So you've got shows in Luxembourgish, French, Portuguese, I think, as well, and possibly some other languages, on, you know, and French and Luxembourgish on a regular basis. So, and someone said to me recently, oh my God, this French show was so weird. It's just like they complained all the time. It's like, that's French comedy. They were just complaining.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm generalizing, of course. And so, yeah, I mean, if you don't feel that, if that's not something you can do, then that might be tricky then to engage with an audience in French. But personally, I found like you do just try and find middle ground with all of them. Which is tricky in Luxembourg because everyone's got different cultural references here.
Yeah.
If you're traveling to another country, I would always try and adapt my sets to have jokes that the audience will relate to. So most of the time that would be in Germany or in the UK. So yeah, and also putting in some local references, just something small, like referring to changing the name of a shop in your joke to the name of a shop in Germany. That's sort of, you know, like
I can
everyone
imagine.
knows like Wish. You know, Wish is kind of like a universal cheap shop sort of thing. And then the UK is quite self-deprecating, and I feel that's much easier, more my kind of comfort place. And then, yeah, the other challenge is also like what kind of language are you using in your not just the references, but the language. So if your audience, the English is not their first language or their second or even their third language, you know, it's like you have to choose your words quite carefully and most importantly, slow down, which is my biggest weakness because I'm just like a hyperactive puppy. Just
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah, that's true. That when sometimes we like to talk and nobody can stop us. It's a good quality if you are a comedian. So congratulations. I think it's very good. But well, I would love you to share with us when is going to be the next event that you are going to have, the closest one, and where the people can contact you.
Sure. So the next event is going to be Frilly Curtains. So that's the open mic that was created as a result of people who took Festrogen workshops. So Frilly Curtains happens on the second Wednesday and the fourth Wednesday of every month. It takes place on the second floor of Cosco, which is a Tex-Mex restaurant in Place d'Armes. So on the second, in Luxembourg City, yeah. The second Wednesday, it's always stand-up comedy open mic, and the fourth Wednesday is always storytelling. Not always funny, but storytelling. So, but, you know, intimate, engaging, authentic, and we keep the lineup very. It's always 8 people because we want it to be qualitative. We want people to make sure they prepare really well, and we want our audiences to have a good time at the end of the day. We don't want them to have to sit through 20 performances and be exhausted. We want them to come back. So yeah, the next one is going to be 28th of February. That's storytelling. It's also a free show, although we do ask people just to register on Eventbrite. You can find it on eventbrite.fr. Frilly Curtains. We ask you to register just because there's a maximum capacity to the room. And then of course we would love you to come to Festrogen, which, as Marta said, is in April. It's 12th to the 13th of April. It's just one weekend. We're going to be dropping tickets at the beginning of March, and you can find those on our Facebook and our Instagram, which are Festrogen Festival. But we also have a website, www.festrogen. I can't say it. I'm sorry. Festrogen. We should have chosen an easier name. There's a lesson in branding.
That's true. Yeah.
And I'm sorry about the feedback on this mic. Festrogenfestival.com. But maybe, Marta, you have other shows you want to share.
Well,
Please,
Maria was talking earlier, the International Women's Day celebration. That's going to be probably, I don't know about you, but maybe Maria, you can tell us like how many people are we expecting? But that's probably going to be like Jess has done the Edinburgh Fringe, so she has come across a lot of people, but that's going to be a nice audience for us.
Yeah. Actually, this is going to be the Women Power Fest 2024, and it's different organizations came together actually to give those powers and sharing. And we are going to be around 250 people. We are going to be in the Meliam Hotel here in Luxembourg, and I think that all the people are welcome to come to share. All genders as well. Is going to be a big event where everybody have been adding a lot of value to bring it and show how we together can really start generating changes and generating more impact. So this is going to happen the 8th of March. Awesome. Yeah.
250 people, no pressure, Jess.
Exactly. I don't know if you want to share a little bit of something about how do you manage these big audiences?
We'll find out on the date.
That is actually tricky. It's funny because it is tricky. I love a small cramped cellar. That's my comfort space. But, because there's a science to comedy. Basically, people will feel more compelled to let go and laugh if they're in the dark, if they're not lit up. Also, if the person next to them is laughing, and sort of laughter sort of, it kind of trickles around the room. Yeah. So it's more challenging in a big room, for sure. I think that the art is to sort of warm people up, maybe have an MC to get people warmed up. And then it's just crowd work at the end of the day, just throwing questions out to people, like make some noises. I think that's a good way to connect with people in such a big room.
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to it and to see you on action, because actually I haven't had the opportunity to see you working as a comedian. So more than welcome to come to this event as well. And I will be supporting you in all the events and all the shows that you are going to have, because I believe in the power of women as well and the power of inclusion. So really, it was a pleasure to having you here, ladies. And I don't know if you want to add something else to our audiences.
Thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Maria, for having this incredible podcast that makes us such a safe space. And we really enjoyed this hour together.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I've been stalking Maria for a little while on LinkedIn, so I'm really happy to talk to her in person in March. Yeah, thank you.
We hope you have been inspired by this content and join us for future episodes of the Brilliantly Branded podcast. We will continue exploring the power of branding and the stories behind successful brands. And remember, if you know a woman who has built a successful brand with a unique approach and a story to share, please refer them to our podcast. We would love to learn from their experiences and share their story with our listeners. Stay tuned for most episodes of Brilliantly Branded, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, on our YouTube channel for more branding insights and women empowerment. Until the next episode, ciao ciao.